Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, a Hare Krishna community in West Virginia serves vegetarian food made in 3 sacred kitchens.
There is a 4th kitchen here that you've not heard
There's
of.
a 4th kitchen. What's that?
Which is the secret kitchen that I think if you taste that food, it's just totally different level of purity, goodness.
An Asheville musician's latest guitar album is a call to arms.
I went with the idea of creating an album in the context of times we live in, and times of need for voices and action.
And we talk soul food with Xavier Oglesby, who's passing on generations of kitchen wisdom to his niece.
When you think of soul food, that's the first thing you think is black folk, because we were able to take nothing and make something out of it for a meal.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Good morning. Yes, good morning. I'm supposed to meet...
Our Folkways reporter, Zach Harold, recently made a trip to the small town of New Vrindaban in West Virginia's northern panhandle. That's a Hare Krishna community started in the late 60s. These days, the town is home to a few hundred permanent residents, but thousands of pilgrims visit each year. They come to worship in the temple and to visit the opulent Palace of Gold. But those main attractions were a pretty small part of Zach's trip. He ended up spending much of his time in the kitchen.
3 different kitchens, actually. This originally started as a feature piece on Govinda's, the restaurant here in New Vrindaban. I thought, Indian-inspired vegetarian restaurant in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia, got to be a story there somewhere. But as I learned more, I found there was more to this than just a restaurant. It turns out that food is central to the Hare Krishna faith, its traditions and worship. And Govinda's is just one part of that.
Because we do everything with food. We cannot have a program without, food on the table,
That's Vasudev, who runs Govinda's.
So that's why they call us, the kitchen religion.
So what started as a story about a restaurant turned into a story about 3 different kitchens here in New Vrindaban, each of which a little more sacred than the last.
The restaurant kitchen.
You can't really tell from the sound of it, but the cooks here at Govinda's are deep into prep for the lunch rush. Cooks are swarming around, stirring pots and chopping vegetables. There is a small TV in the corner playing Indian ragas. But there's no idle chit-chat at all, because the kitchen staff is trying to keep their minds on God.
Whatever consciousness you have when you prepare something, is that going to be translated into the food. And any energy that is in the food is going to go to people as well. So if you're cooking in a happy state, in a God consciousness state, people who is eating that are going to get the benefit.
Vasu comes from a big Italian Catholic family in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So the kitchens he grew up in were anything but quiet. When he joined the International Society of Krishna Consciousness in college, he noticed Hare Krishna cooks did things a little differently. And it wasn't just about the volume level.
And I remember the cooks, while they're cooking, they taste them, They taste and see, I say, okay, let me taste the salt, let me see, how spicy it is, But here we don't do that.
You'll never see a cook in this restaurant tasting a sauce or even wafting the smell of a dish up to their nose.
We offer to God, to Krishna, and then we'll taste it. When we're preparing something, we're preparing with a consciousness that we're offering this to God.
Before human tongue tastes any of the food prepared here, one of the cooks will present samples of each dish before a small altar set up on top of one of the kitchen's coolers. The cook will then chant a mantra and ring a bell. They wait a few minutes, and then everyone else can enjoy the food as well.
And then by doing that, you get the blessings. And then when you eat that, your body is not only get the nutrients that your body needs, but also the spiritual benefit as well.
Govinda serves up a lot of this spiritually infused food, providing lunch and dinner to the dozens of pilgrims who visit each week. Much of the menu is Indian-inspired, and in keeping with Hare Krishna dietary restrictions, Govinda's serves only vegetarian food. It's a lot of healthy grains and legumes, like rice and lentils, and lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness actually runs the largest vegetarian food distribution program in the world. It's called Food for Life, and it was born from an experience Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, the movement's founder, had when he was trying to build another temple in Mayapur, India. Prabhupada and his followers had cooked rice for the people there, serving it on leaves. After they were done, they threw those leaves into a pile.
And I saw some kid looking into the trash for some food.
In some tellings of the story, children had to fight stray dogs for the food.
And he said, that's no good. So any person who lives around 10 miles of the temple should be fed by us. So out of that, a program called Food for Life was born. And right now it's all around the world.
That's why, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, New Vrindaban provides a free breakfast and lunch to anyone who wants a seat at the table, whether you're a resident, a pilgrim, or just somebody who wants a meal. But that food does not come from Govinda's. To see where those meals are prepared, you've got to head next door to the temple, to the second of New Vrindaban's kitchens.
The devotee kitchen.
When Sachi Sutta gets up in the morning, usually around 4, he showers to make himself ritually clean and heads down to the temple to pray.
And we chant like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we chant that mantra, then we keep ourselves pure, then come to kitchen.
Sachi runs New Vrindaban's devotee kitchen. Each day he consults with the temple president to see how many pilgrims stayed the night in the community's lodge. Add to that any new cars that might be in the parking lot, and any full-time residents who might come down to the temple to eat.
Today we're cooking almost 120 people, because today not many visitors to breakfast, and we're cooking lunch almost 150 people.
That's a big crowd. Luckily, Sachi has a good bit of help. Just before daybreak, a parade of volunteers files into the devotee kitchen. They slip on some hairnets, and with a little instruction from Sachi, they set to work.
Make something, sweet and, very fluffy bread.
Devotees wash potatoes and chop pineapples, quarter oranges, and dice jalapenos for curries, salads, and quinoa. Though the kitchen does get vegetables delivered from a local grower and uses some store-bought ingredients, Sachi also uses lots of vegetables grown on the property, as well as milk from the community's cows and dairy products like ghee and yogurt made from that milk. The volunteer cooks remain quiet while they work, just like the cooks in the restaurant kitchen, except for when a big goofy guy sticks a microphone in their face while they're mashing bananas for Sachi's special buckwheat banana bread.
Have you ever made this before?
No, first time.
You're doing great.
I hope.
What's your name?
That's Anabuth, a devotee from Pennsylvania. He drove down today to spend his birthday at the temple. Today's volunteers come from all over: Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Michigan, Toronto, Canada. They've driven for hours and hours just to spend a few days here in the mountains. And Sachi said that's common. Devotees come to New Vrindaban from everywhere. People who can't make it to the holy places in India are able to come here and receive the same spiritual benefit.
That gets same benefit in the India, whatever get that. That's why everybody come here.
So it's no wonder that while these pilgrims are here, they're more than happy to roll up their sleeves and help out in the kitchen. When the food's done, Sachi plates a little sample of each dish into a small aluminum bowl. Those bowls go onto a 12-inch aluminum platter, which is placed before some fresh flowers and images of Krishna, his consort Radha, and Prabhupada. Then Sachi offers the food to Krishna with the ringing of a bell and the chanting of the mantra. Sachi and his rotating kitchen crew go through this routine 730 times a year. But there are some jobs around here that volunteers can't do, aren't allowed to do. Just down the hall from the devotee kitchen, behind a closed but unassuming door, is another kitchen. Normally, only the most committed devotees are allowed inside. But they made an exception for us, so I could take you into the kitchen where God's food is prepared.
The deity kitchen.
The cooks in New Vrindaban's restaurant and devotee kitchens try to use the best ingredients in their cooking. But here, everything is held to a higher standard.
Except for like olive oil and lemon juice, you won't find like anything like canned or preserved in here.
That's Anuradha M. Singh, the communications director.
Everything is made fresh. Like they make fresh cheese every single day.
And it's not just the ingredients. The pots, pans, and utensils used in the deity kitchen are used here and nowhere else. They don't even share a dishwasher with stuff from the other kitchens. Instead of the stainless steel serving dishes used in the restaurant and devotee kitchens to offer the food to Krishna, here he dines from serving dishes made of pure silver. Everything is set aside for God, including the chef.
The idea is meditating Krishna. Everything you're doing is offered for Krishna. No? I'm very happy cooking for that deity. Yeah.
Rohini Kumar is from Peru. He's known as a twice-initiated devotee. He's taken additional vows to the faith and as such has a special mantra that he chants 3 times a day. That allows him to prepare food for Krishna in this sanctified kitchen space.
Not every day coming, I see different vegetables. No have menu for day. No?
You let the ingredients tell
you
what to cook.
Yeah.
He gets a fruit salad, he gets like a little savory curry, and he might get like, a puri, like some kind of bread, some kind of Indian bread.
Once everything was ready, Rohini transferred the food to those silver serving dishes. All plated up, it looks like an appetizer platter that someone ordered as their lunch. And now, it's ready for the table. A Hare Krishna temple service is a multi-sensory experience. There's the sound of conch shells, drumming, cymbals, chanting, and singing. The smell of incense fills your nose, and the shrine itself is visually overwhelming, with intricate wood and metalwork, stained glass, and paintings. It's in this setting that devotees make a series of offerings. They change the clothes on the images of Krishna and his consort Radha, removing their pajamas and putting on their day clothes. They wake up the deities with good morning prayers and small pieces of milk candy prepared in the deity kitchen. They offer fresh flowers and the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water. And then they offer the food Rohini prepared.
So she basically used that tray. She's inviting them to come and sit with her hands, right?
Once the food is offered, devotees leave the plates there for a short while so Krishna and Radha can enjoy it. Then a devotee takes the food back into the kitchen area where it is transferred out of the holy dishes and into less sanctified food containers. Then it can be eaten by anyone.
It becomes a really intensely sanctified food. Like it's called Maha Prasadam. Prasadam just means sanctified food, and Maha means great. So this means like the greatest.
Do the priests get to eat this?
Well, everyone gets to eat it. Yeah, meaning like whoever gets there first gets to eat it, right?
On nice days, the community dines outdoors on picnic tables in front of the temple. There's also a dining hall, and that's where Anuradha and I ate for recording purposes.
Okay, so I suggest you try these first, like the ones that were made. So this is from the kitchen. Okay. This, and this is from the kitchen, right?
From the devotee kitchen, there was a vegetable curry, some quinoa, and the buckwheat banana bread Sachi was making. From the deity kitchen, I had an extra sanctified potato pancake, some of those milk candies offered to Krishna as a morning snack, and paneer cheese. I'm not sure I could pick up on the spiritual side of it, but you can tell this food was made with quality ingredients and a lot of care and attention. After we finished breakfast, I noticed some other folks in the dining hall. Raghavacharya Das and his wife Mansi and their 2 children. We struck up a conversation, and I discovered the family only moved here 3 months ago. They came from Silicon Valley, where she was a research scientist at Stanford, and he worked at a financial technology startup. Now, they're full-time devotees.
So when you are here, you'll also observe it. There is something here. It attracts you back.
As I was explaining the premise of the story I was reporting, Raghavacharya said something that shocked me, as you can hear from the tape.
There is a fourth kitchen here that you've not heard
There's
of.
a fourth kitchen. What's that?
Which is the secret kitchen that I think if you taste that food, it's just totally different level of purity, goodness.
I asked if he could show me this secret kitchen, but he said I didn't quite understand what he meant. This fourth kitchen doesn't stay in one place.
It's not like a kitchen that you can go and see. It is devotees who are cooking for senior disciples who live but are really old and not able to cook for themselves. And that preparation, different devotees do it on a rotation basis in their own in their homes. And that food, if you see, it's prepared just with love. There is no other motivation, nothing.
There is a kitchen garden here. They grow vegetables over there, and they're organic vegetables grown in this land, so really potent. So we get those vegetables for them. We don't just get any vegetable from supermarkets. And then those are also simple squashes, beans, and just cooked in ghee. That's it, ghee and love.
As Mansi was explaining how the community prepares food in this secret fourth kitchen, I thought it sounded an awful lot like the way Rohini goes about making food for Krishna in the deity kitchen. But then, I guess cooking simple, filling meals with wholesome, healthy ingredients for the most vulnerable people in your community, food made with ghee and love, and doing that behind the scenes without any recognition or praise. Even if that's not done within the four walls of a temple, I don't think you're going to find food much more sacred than that. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Zach Harold in New Vrindaban, West Virginia.
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in our region. You can find more Folkways stories at our website, wvpublic.org. Coming up, musician Tashi Dorji grew up in Bhutan and found inspiration in Asheville's punk scene. You're Inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, offering 31 bachelor-level degrees and 6 master-level degrees for students of any age. More information at concord.edu.
This is Begin From Here, the first track on Asheville musician Tashi Dorji's new album called We Will Be Wherever the Fires Are Lit. Dorji was born in Bhutan and moved to Western North Carolina in 2000. He's been here ever since. Dorji released a slew of albums over the last 25 years, both as a solo artist and collaborator. His latest is all instrumental. The title, We Will Be Wherever the Fires Are Lit, appears in a poem on the album's Bandcamp page. I asked Dorji to read it.
This is sort of I guess you could call it a poem. It's kind of a put together as I finished the album, and some of the titles were kind of fragments of these kind of ideas. It's called Begin From Here. Begin from here, our world lives when our world ceases to exist. Begin from here with hopes between silent skies while world breathes again and fever subsides. Begin from here, and to those who strike blows, begin from here while we keep going. Begin from here while we mourn, we also fight. We'll be wherever the fires are lit.
So yeah, let's start with that album title because it's really evocative and definitely creates like some images in my mind.
Begin From Here, I came up with the title as a way to evoke a sense of direct action and the ideas of mutuality and all the groundworks that were happening, and it was inspiring in these times of despair and kind of evoking the tradition of radical imagination of people doing work on the ground, basically, and kind of creating that poetry out of that, and how the enclosure of the mutuality and the commons of people working towards making changes is always other places where we meet, right? There's always places of commonality. When things are in desperation, we can meet. And that's basically where I'm trying to come at. It's like the imperial empire will fall apart and people will always survive. People will be there because it's our job to dismantle that, and we'll come together to rebuild or readapt towards a new imagination.
I love the range of guitar sounds on this album. It's ridiculous to try to describe music in words.
Right.
But I'm hearing alarm bells, I'm hearing wind chimes, almost songbirds at times even. Yeah. How did you develop this innovative way of playing the guitar?
I mean, it's just, I think, just playing for many years at this point. But also I'm really drawn towards timbres and tones, more than notes. I'm always drawn towards percussive playing, and with guitar, it is a rhythmic instrument, but the tonality of gongs and drums, it takes a little bit of an alteration to create that. So that's always kind of drawn me, and few of the tracks that are like kind of prepared. I've used small things to go in between the strings to create kind of overtones, and I've been doing that for a while at this point. So I got introduced to more like very crusty punk music, like His Hero Is Gone or Tragedy, like more crust heavy D-beat bands. And those were like, I have to be honest, like bands like this, His Hero Is Gone, has always have inspired me in some ways, although it doesn't translate in my playing because, a lot of those acoustic recordings doesn't replicate that kind of ideas. But I would say bands like that are really inspirational to me, but I think it's also this, like, the poetic aspect and the revolutionary kind of the fervor of the anarchistic fire. I think those definitely kind of comes into how I play. And as far as musically, I think I got into playing into more non-traditional style because of people like Derek Bailey, basically, He was single-handedly kind of blew my mind when I first heard him. And it just kind of opened me up. And there are contemporaries like Aaron Turner is somebody I really inspires me with band like Sumac.
What led you to Western North Carolina, into the mountains of Appalachia?
I came to Warren Wilson College as an international student. I literally found like a brochure alumni magazine when I was in Bhutan, and I wrote a handwritten letter to the college, the admission office. They wrote me back, and they were so excited. And I just filled out the form, and I had somebody help me through the process of application, and they got me financial aid, and I found some sponsor to fly me over, and I was here. It just happened really fast. And I had no idea where Warren Wilson College was and what Asheville, Western North Carolina, I had no clue. I just wanted to be where Smashing Pumpkins came from, Nirvana. It was like purely motivated by like grunge era curiosity and just, that's the whole 90s grunge fascination. I was so into it.
Did you have culture shock coming in?
No, not really. I mean, I have to say Bhutanese people are very adaptive. I think the mountain peoples are always, maybe I'm generalizing, but I have a feeling that we adapt pretty quick. Not culture shock, but there was like, social lifestyle things, customs that I was not accustomed to, few things,
I'm interested in hearing some of your thoughts on the mountains in Bhutan, the Himalayas, versus, what it's like in Appalachia, and some of your thoughts about the differences, similarities.
Yeah, it's so crazy that I ended up here. Like, of all the places, I'm up in the mountains, And it makes sense. Bhutanese people are very superstitious, and we believe in magic and stuff. Maybe there's like a weird karmic thing that happened that led me here. because I have my family here now. I have kids, and my partner, she's from here, like generational. And I would think, there's comfort in living around these mountains, because it really like make me think of my home. It reminds me of my home in many ways. As much as I miss the Himalayas, there's similarities in the simplicity and the warmth of people. I see that similarity. A lot of the Appalachian culture are more relaxed, and they're more welcoming in many ways. It depends. I find that similarity is kind of striking in many ways. The Himalaya, you go there to Bhutan, our culture is open and simple, and people are welcoming, and people like to converse, and I find that there's similarities. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so speaking of that, I'm interested in hearing some about your experiences with the music scene in Asheville. I'm curious how you've engaged in the scene, how it's influenced some of what you play now. I'm interested to hear more about Asheville and its influences.
Asheville's always been pretty vibrant, with all the struggle that comes with like rents and the expense of living in this expensive city. At this point, there's still thriving collective of people doing a lot of incredible stuff. Yeah, it's still vibrant, and it was important for me because this is where I started playing music, especially the music that I do now. A lot of my friends who helped me record and play together, and the people that I play with, I live here. I think it's still very supported. With this struggle, I think we need a space that's just meant for art and artists. I talk to my friends here and need to have that kind of enclosure of art and artists to do what we want to do without having to worry about upper hand of rental and landlords and expenses, where there's like an actual infrastructure and community support. This is harder, but I think that should be like the next kind of a phase of, to me at least.
I wanted to ask you, We Will Be Wherever the Fires Are Lit feels like an inherently political album.
Yeah.
How do you make instrumental political music?
I had to add the title just to accent that, to emphasize, to have emphasis towards what that track was moving to. And the whole album is kind of geared towards evoking those feelings and emotions.
Did you, I guess in your writing process, and I know it's improv, and do you go in wanting to infuse these improvisations with this energy, or is it kind of more like it evokes this and you kind of add the label and the title afterwards?
I think with Stateless and this album, I went with the idea of creating an album in the context of times we live in, and times of need for voices and action and being around community of friends and comrades who are working towards that. And I think, it's definitely going with the motivation to create something that has the fervor, I have no expectations when I record, I just record tracks, and the whole process involves, after I finish recording, I listen to it and I have to compile them into little tracks, and it's like the whole composition is basically wording is like that's like the harder part for me, is like putting words to those tracks. So it's like that's a part of a larger compositional process that goes through, and it becomes this rhizomatic kind of a process, and it becomes a thing. But that thing is, it's malleable. Is that the word? It's very much in flux. It's not rigid. But the idea is to evoke the now, the present, the moment of action and now, and how coming together and the hope of the empire is falling apart, and that's where the fires will be lit, and that's where we'll meet and imagine a different world.
What's next for you in your music? What do you have coming up?
So much. A lot of music, my band Manas, we think about recording. We have new recordings. We're trying to put it out. There are a lot of projects that I'm working on with different people, and working on a solo record that I'm doing collaboration with many different artists actually collaborating with the tracks I sent them. So it'll be like vocals, and some people will be like even deconstructing the tracks. So it'll be like a solo record with a bunch of different people working, singing, or playing instruments. And yeah, that's the next record, I think.
Tashi, Dorji, thank you so much for coming on Inside Appalachia and speaking with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
That was Tashi Dorji. The new album is We Will Be Wherever the Fires Are Lit. Find it from Drag City or on Bandcamp. Special thanks to Blue Ridge Public Radio in Asheville for letting us use their studio. Video rental stores used to be a big deal. Growing up in Clifton Forge, Virginia, my family went to Videovision weekly. I remember staring at the covers of the boxes, especially for movies my parents didn't let us watch. Most of those places faded away with the rise of streaming services, but a few still hang on in small towns, like Simpsonia Video in Graves County, Kentucky. Derek Operly from WKMS reports.
Simpsonia is literally a one-stoplight town. With a population of less than 500, the small Graves County community is home to several churches, an elementary school, a dollar store, and a country restaurant.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
It's also home to Simpsonia Video, one of the last remaining film rental stores in the state.
Yeah, I used to take two of us to run it, and they kept us both hopping. And now it's definitely dwindled down. There's new ways to see things and just progress. What are you going to do?
That's Carol Turner, the shop's owner-operator. Simpsonia Video, which has never had a social media page or a website, has lasted through the rise and fall of an industry trying to compete with the likes of Hulu, Netflix, and Disney+. She's been running the place for 3.5 decades, ordering the movies, sitting behind the counter, rewinding the tapes, and connecting with customers, though she says she misses a lot of her old regulars who've stopped coming in recent years.
Sometimes you see them out somewhere else and they don't even realize you are still here in business. That's how much things have changed.
The store's collection boasts more than 3,500 movies on VHS and more than twice that on DVD, allowing customers to check out the newest Marvel movie as easily as they could something that never made it to streaming. For John Holt, who grew up in Simpsonia, Turner's video store was something of a second home. He remembers hassling his dad to take him to Simpsonia Video before he was old enough to walk, bike, or ride his four-wheeler to the shop on his own.
My dad would take me up there, I'd watch a movie, go back and get another one, watch a movie, go back and get another one. I mean, all day. All day he would have to stop mowing to go take me to get a movie to rent.
All that time crunching tape paid off for Holt, who directed his first film, The Dooms Chapel Horror, in 2016. Now a DVD of it sits proudly in the horror section that Holt used to haunt.
Never in my wildest imagination would that have happened. At all. Having a movie actually on the shelf.
Kate Hagan, a Los Angeles-based writer, created a directory of video stores still operating in the U.S. during the COVID-19 pandemic, as many shops struggled to stay open.
A store like Simpsonia proves that, like, if you build it, they will come. If you maintain it, they will come. That can stand the test of time. That can sort of fight against the winds of change, the winds of this digital age.
After nearly 2 decades of competing with streaming video services like Netflix, which launched its on-demand platform in 2007, and the economic blow of the pandemic, Hagan estimates there are less than 200 video stores like Turner's still operating in the U.S. She says video stores can be a third space for people in an era when those are increasingly uncommon. That's precisely what the store is for 23-year-old Ash Culp of Paducah, one of Turner's most devoted customers. They're an aspiring filmmaker and a lover of cult cinema, regularly checking out titles like Killer Tongue, a British-Spanish co-production that features aliens, dogs who turn into drag queens, and a Nightmare on Elm Street star Robert Englund.
I'm a fan of stupid movies. I like the diamonds in the rough nobody else cares about. Some of my favorite movies are B and C movies that I've found on Carol's shelf.
Culp says their 6 years as a Simpsonia Video regular have exposed them to new movies and brought them close to Turner through their discussions about film and life between video rentals.
Carol has always managed to make Simpsonia Video feel like another home, and it's always comfortable to come in here and talk to her. She's practically like family to me at this point.
Turner says making those connections with her customers is one of the things that's kept her in business this long.
And I met people here that I probably never would have met any other way, and friends that I have had for a long time and hope that I have for the rest of my time.
Though she knows she can't just rewind to better times, Turner says she just doesn't know when to quit. I'm Derek Operley in Simpsonia.
Last year, federal regulators approved a new rule to protect miners from silica dust that's a factor in black lung cases. It would also affect rock and sand quarries. Republicans opposed regulations in the past, and now the party controls Congress and the White House. Radio IQ's Roxy Todd reports.
At the Salem Stone Quarry in Dublin, Virginia, miners are crushing rocks with a machine. We're outside, and the air is thick with dust.
You can try as hard as you want to. There's going to be some dust somewhere.
Scott Ross is the director of engineering at Salem Stone.
But we're trying to minimize that as much as we can.
Another machine pulverizes the stones into finer material for asphalt. Quarries like this exist all over the United States, and like coal mines, they're regulated as a mining operation. MJ O'Brien is the CEO of Salem Stone and operates 14 quarries in Virginia and North Carolina.
They all have silica, but they have varying amounts, varying percentages. We have some that have almost 100% silica and some that are a little less.
The Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration, or MSHA, announced a new rule last year. It says mines, concrete factories, and gravel quarries will have stricter regulations on how much toxic silica dust workers can be exposed to. For coal mines, penalties could start in April of this year. Other places, like the Stone Quarry, have an extra year to reach compliance.
We are full steam ahead in implementing it. I only have control of that up until January 20th.
That's Chris Williamson, outgoing head of MSHA. He was appointed by Biden and was not asked to stay on by the Trump team. Last year, House Republicans tried to block funding to enforce the new silica rule, and they could try again in the next budget negotiation. Williamson says he'll be working right up until the last day, preparing a legal argument to defend the silica rule. A group of mining companies took the rule to court, saying the agency overstepped its authority when trying to regulate them.
My goal is to at least provide a full-throated defense of that rule before I walk out the door.
Rebecca Shelton is the director of policy for the Appalachian Citizens Law Center. She says staffing and political will are going to be important to making the new silica dust rule effective.
The boots on the ground to do the enforcement and also the desire to do the enforcement are going to be really important.
And while Shelton doesn't think the silica rule is 100% perfect, she says any delay means more miners are put at risk.
We've been waiting for this for such a long time. Anyway, but I think the bottom line is that we're trying to prevent disease.
Back at the Virginia Stone Quarry, O'Brien says enforcing the new rule will cost his company lots of money, and there are things he doesn't like about it. But that doesn't mean he wants to see the Trump administration get rid of it.
It's complicated, but yes, we're in favor of it because it goes further to protect our people, and we're going to protect them at all costs.
He does have criticism for MSHA and says the agency could be better at communicating with companies how they plan to enforce the new rule. He's hoping that whoever Trump picks to lead MSHA will have what he says is more common sense overseeing the agency. In Dublin, Virginia, I'm Roxy Todd.
Inflation has raised the cost of food and other products across the country. President Trump campaigned on lower prices, but some experts say his tariffs could actually push costs up even higher. In mid-January, just before the presidential inauguration, WEKU's John McGarry traveled to a grocery store in Letcher County, Kentucky. He wanted to see how folks felt about the cost of food and whether they thought it would change with the new administration.
The Isom IGA offers most everything you find in a modern-day grocery, including a breakfast and lunch counter that attracts customers from across Letcher County and beyond. That's where we find Marianne Moore, who lives in Isom and retired in April of 2023.
Never dreamed I'd have to pay $6 for a dozen of eggs in my life. I live in Eastern Kentucky, and or pay $3 for a loaf of bread, or have to pay more for a gallon of milk than I pay for a gallon of gas. So it has really affected my whole family.
Moore says she hopes the Trump administration will somehow lower prices, particularly for food and gasoline. She's sharing a table with store manager and future owner Simon Kristen, whose parents bought the grocery in 1998.
We are a coal mining town, always have been. So ever since the coal mine shut down, you've seen a lot of struggle in our area. Poverty, a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck. And it was already hard before the inflation has already went up the rate that it's went up. You're seeing a lot of families struggle to get the food that they need to be able to provide and keep their families fed.
Kristen says they try to help with promotions and sometimes free food for struggling families.
To piggyback off of what Miss Marianne said, I'm praying that when this administration gets in there that we can see a change, because I know when even outside of groceries, when I purchased my first house, interest rates was at 4.1%. And you have a kid or a young couple going to purchase their first home now, and you're looking at 7.3, 7.5% interest rates.
Kristen says at this point, it almost seems it will take a miracle for things to get back to where people can live comfortably again. On this weekday early afternoon, the aisles are busy but not crowded. Glenda Cook lives in Whitesburg, the county seat.
It's pretty high right now. It's just, it makes it rough getting by.
Have your shopping habits changed? I mean, are there things you don't buy anymore or find something else instead?
Yes. Go for maybe a cheaper brand instead
More
of
generics?
Yes.
Do you think things are going to get better with the incoming administration?
I don't know, but I hope so. So we'll see. Time will tell.
An aisle away are Letcher Countyans Amber and Brian Adams.
It has affected it. I mean, if it weren't for my husband having a good job, good paying job, it probably would affect it a lot more. It still sucks though for everybody that can't afford to have good groceries.
Have your shopping and other purchasing habits changed?
Not really.
Definitely see the prices going up. I travel for work. So I'm near a lot of cities, and it's just outrageous. Right now I'm up near Detroit, Michigan. Everything's higher there than it is here. Like she said, I make good money, but it goes a lot faster now.
Do you have reason to believe the next administration will somehow cure this?
I don't know how much they can cure what's been done. I feel like they were cheaper the last term, so hopefully he can do something, but I really don't know.
Trump won Letcher County by 64 percentage points last November. But if there's one thing most every voter here likely agrees on, it's what Morgan wished for a few minutes earlier.
I love America, I love American dream, and I want to see people to be able to fulfill that dream. I have a daughter, I have a grandson, I want them to be able to live in America, that they can buy their food, they can buy their home, they can do things.
I'm John McGarry in Isom.
Soul food, like cornbread, extra cheesy mac and cheese, and collard greens, plays an important role in Black communities across Appalachia. In 2023, Folkways fellow Vanessa Pena spoke with Xavier Oglesby, a master artist in soul food cooking from Beckley, West Virginia.
When peace like a river attendeth my way.
It's a warm spring afternoon at Manna House Ministries, a Second Baptist church in Beckley, West Virginia. Xavier Oglesby is singing his favorite hymn, It Is Well With My Soul, as he prepares a macaroni salad in the church's kitchen.
To say, it is well.
Today, Xavier is cooking alone, but normally this kitchen would be bustling with life.
It kind of reminds you of when you watch a bee's nest and how the bees are, they're buzzing around and everybody's just so busy doing, that's just kind of what it looks like. But it's chaotic, but it's an organized chaos. The ladies at the church growing up, the old ladies, they'd be cooking, and all the ladies, they would bring their best recipes. Every one of them is good at something, at least one thing. And they pride themselves at that.
It might be macaroni salad or a pan of biscuits or chitlins. Soul food is a cooking style that is intrinsic to Black culture both in the South and Appalachia. Xavier says more so than the food itself, It's the way a meal comes together that makes soul food soul food.
When you think of soul food, that's the first thing you think is black folks, because we were able to take nothing and make something out of it for a meal. And that's the way it is even today. You just got to reach and grab something. You just keep going, you know. It's always going to be something that you may not have. But you can make a meal anyway.
Xavier has been cooking since he was a teenager. He's learned from 4 generations of his family, but learning how to cook in the Oglesby household wasn't always easy. As Xavier boils macaroni and cuts vegetables, he tells me growing up had its moments of strict instruction from his great-grandmother, Grandma Virginia.
She cooked for the superintendents of the coal companies. And, as you know, back then they were domestics. And that's what she did. She was known for that. I mean, this lady, she could cook, almost in her sleep. It was amazing to me just to see her cook. And now she would sing. Oh, gosh, she would get in that kitchen. And everything had to be done perfectly.
And she expected perfection from her great-grandson, too.
So she would stand there and watch me prepare a dish. She would have a wooden spoon in her hand. And she'd watch me prepare this dish, and I would have to do it exactly how she would do it. If I didn't do it, if I missed a step or whatever, she'd hit the back of my hand with the wooden spoon, like that.
Today at the church, women from Manna House Ministries talk in the next room while Xavier cooks. He says that in his family and at church, women were central to the cooking traditions he grew up with. So as a boy who was interested in cooking, he felt some resistance.
Eventually it was okay, but I've got, like I say, I've got 3 other brothers, and it was going to be okay. In this family, you have to kind of take your place and, draw the line there. And so you just stand up and do that, and that's what I did. And then eventually, it was easier, I guess, for the guys in the family, the older men, to accept that and like that. When you look around today, people make a living, guys make a living doing everything.
Now, Xavier is teaching his niece, Brooklyn Oglesby, how to cook soul food and family recipes. He's doing it through the West Virginia Folklife Apprenticeship Program, which is directed by the West Virginia State folklorist, Jenny Williams.
So this program is hosted every other year, but for a full year, artists can be a part of this program to pass on their traditional knowledge and art forms and skills to an apprentice of their choosing.
Folklife apprenticeship pairs are carrying on community-based traditional art forms and cultural practices, from fiddle instrument repair to mushroom foraging, all with the goal of passing on stories, skill sets, and traditional knowledge. Full disclosure, I worked with Jenny as an AmeriCorps member this year. This is an excerpt from an interview she did with Xavier and Brooklyn, where Brooklyn talks about learning from her uncle.
My main goal has been to learn how to cook, and he's taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had to cook. I mean, I've lived on my own. I've had to make meals and stuff, and I've struggled since I've moved out with my own family. It's been a major struggle because half the time I'll spend 2 hours cooking just for it to be so nasty.
Each apprenticeship pair keeps in mind the future of the tradition and who they want to pass their knowledge on to.
I'm hoping I can raise 2 sons that know how to cook. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about because, like he said, his mom taught them all to cook clean and do laundry and all that stuff, and I'm hoping I can keep that going and teach my kids, and hopefully they'll be better cooks than me one day.
For the past year, Xavier and Brooklyn have been spending time learning together. Jenny says Xavier and Brooklyn are exactly the kind of pairing the apprenticeship program aims to support.
I was really excited to receive their application. Xavier has worked with us in our first round of the apprenticeship program. So to have him back again in this program is really exciting, and for him to bring on his niece to learn their family cooking traditions, that's especially something that we want to support.
As part of their work together, the Oglesbys have prepared food for community gatherings and also hosted events. One of those events is a card party, which is an informal community game night.
On the coal camp, we used to have card parties, and people would go to each other's houses. On the nights that they would have the card parties, that we would have, the ladies would bring covered dishes, and they would have all kinds of stuff. They would bring pig feet, and somebody may bring some chitlins, and somebody maybe bring a pound cake or two.
These card parties have been hosted by Xavier in Brooklyn at the Women's Club in Beckley, West Virginia. They feature live music, tables with cards for guests to play a card game of their choice, and old-fashioned soul food. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Vanessa Pena in Charleston, West Virginia.
Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Jet Holden, Tashi Dorji, The Local Honeys, John Ingram, and Grace Bowers and the Hodgepodge. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editors Nicole Musgrave and Chris Julin. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe or stream all of our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, focusing on students' futures. Classes available at concord.edu/apply.
Of an old dirty river, lived my life without a care or a clue. Climbed to the top of the mountain until my mind became unglued. Well, I crawled through the valley of the shadow of death, through the mud and the worms in the rain, looking for a lover with a woman's touch to lift my spirits and ease my pain. Well, I was having a beer when she turned me on my ear, wreaking havoc on my fast beating heart. I knew something was cooking about the time she caught me looking. It was hot and heavy right from the start. Well, there's never been